Hello, John Tory. Thank you for agreeing to do this today.
My pleasure, Tom.
I'd like to begin, just in case there's anybody watching who does not know how you got to be where you are today. Can you talk about the various things you've done during your life that enabled you to be such a good leader?
Well, I tried my best in all of those, but I think the key principles are the same. Whether it's commissioner of the Canadian Football League, I did as a volunteer, or CEO at Rogers, or managing partner of a law firm, or mayor. And it's about teamwork, and it's about humility, and it's about staying cool. So we'll talk about that. But I was just lucky; these things all came to me totally by happenstance. I mean, really, I had to seek out the elected office jobs, but the other ones came from somebody saying, "Would you like to try this?" And I was scared, frankly, about trying it because I thought, well, I don't know exactly how to do that. But if you listen and you rely on others and you realize you're part of a team, even if you're its leader, you're still part of a team, then you can do well at almost anything.
I'm curious to know whether the work that you did in politics, but not as an elected person, or the work that you did in non-political functions, and I'm thinking about the businesses that you ran, I'm thinking about your time at the CFL, which proved to be more helpful to you when you became an elected official?
I learned from the fact that I had to make decisions as an executive before, and that meant learning the issue. It meant consulting and working with a team. It meant at the end of the day making decisions. And so I'd learned how to do that in running a big company. But I would say, on the other hand, when it came to handling the kind of the nuances of public life, as opposed to, in an executive position, people don't ask you very often to defend yourself or justify yourself. You don't have an opposition in the media that are out there every day, trying to judge what you're doing. So you have to so you have to learn that when you're in politics, and it's just over time, I guess, by helping advise others, I sort of learned, if I was, going to eat my own cooking, what not to say, what not to do, and so on. And I wasn't perfect at that, but you certainly, I think, an apprenticeship as an advisor to other politicians, just like an apprenticeship as an executive, makes you a better leader in public life when you get there, if you choose to do so.
And I'm wondering if you can think about a time when you needed to communicate something in a moment of great pressure or crises. I know you were the mayor during COVID, and thank you for that. But whether it was then or some other occasion, can you tell us about what was most important about communicating well in a moment of crises or when you were under great pressure?
Well, two that come to mind. One, you mentioned the pandemic, which was a long-standing thing. It went on, as we know, for years, unfortunately. The other one was the Yonge Street massacre, when a person ran down, 13 people on Yonge Street. And in both cases, the principal cardinal rule was the same. First of all, to decide you were going to communicate, because the people you represented deserved to know as much as you knew, and to be, reassured. And on the reassurance point, to stay cool. Because if you look like you're in a flap about any of those kinds of things, as horrible as they sometimes are, then why are people going to be reassured or calm themselves that their leader kind of knows what they're doing? And so staying cool. And if you look at people over time that have done well at this, it's people who know how to stay cool. They rarely flap their arms or get themselves too exercised. And so those were the principles that I thought: communicate often, over communicate if you feel that that's necessary. And it usually, just as you think you're over communicating, people are just getting the message. And secondly, stay cool, because people deserve to be communicated with, and they deserve to see their leaders in a calm, reassuring manner, as opposed to getting them excited.
Thinking about all of the issues that arise when there is a crisis or a very urgent matter that needs to be dealt with, what is it that you think separates an effective leader from a leader who is not effective?
Well, I think being informed on the issues, I learned that it was okay to say you didn't know something rather than make it up. And I read, as you know, I read everything and tried to sort of know as much as I possibly could. But you can't know everything. And I think you can't make it up, and you have to rely on. I was blessed, and that's another thing, is to build a strong team around you of people who can both help inform you, but also keep you cool, and also give you advice with respect to things that would be wise to say and things that wouldn't be wise.
And when I think about the years that you spent at Rogers, I would imagine that managing the reputation of the company was a very important part of your job. Can you tell us about managing a reputation in the environment that we're in now? The I'm thinking social media and the fact that people consume news very differently. What is your advice about managing reputation?
Well, I mean, it's never been easy. And by the way, reputation is everything. My dad used to tell me that, and say you can lose on a lot of things, you can make a lot of mistakes, but if you lose your good name, and that can apply to a company or a person. And so it's a constant, preoccupation you have to have. And that doesn't mean you have to go out and kind of say things you don't mean in order to keep the reputation. In fact, quite the opposite. I think you just have to always be conscious of what is the person out there going to think, whether they're your voters or your customers or whoever, or your shareholders. What are they going to think of what they see? Are you explaining this in such a way that they're going to be reassured and assume you know what you're doing, and so on? But it's a constant preoccupation. And if you don't look at it from the perspective of what the other people think, meaning the people who are out there that you're serving, then you're going to make mistakes. This happened at Rogers, and look, it happens in all companies that they misjudge how important something is to the people out there, and you think, oh, it's small, they'll get over it. But the fact is, in many cases, they won't. And so it is just something where you need to, again, have a good team, because when you're the CEO, it sure doesn't mean you know everything, and it sure doesn't mean you can make all the decisions correctly by yourself. And so you have to have people who are going to call you out. And what I used to do is read each week a selection of letters that came from some of our customers who by definition were angry because they wrote to us, and I would even phone some of them back, because it allowed me to better understand what it was we were doing. And it was often something really simple in a call center, where the call center representatives weren't authorized to fix a problem, and they'd make people mad because they'd have to keep calling back. And I didn't do it perfectly, but I sure did try to reach out and to talk to customers myself, to keep abreast of what they would think, to always ask that question, what would they think, if this happened, or when it is happening. So I just think that's the most important thing, to stay on top of that and always put yourself in the other person's shoes, and not assume you know best just because you're the CEO, or just because you've always done it that way.
I'm going to ask you to pick the one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who is embarking on a leadership role. What's the one piece of advice you would give them for success?
Be respectful of the team that you have behind you, whether that team, because you have an immediate team that might be 10 or 12 people if it's a big organization, and then you might have a team behind you, which was in my case thousands of people who worked in Rogers, or lots of people who worked in the public service at City Hall. Be respectful of them, include them, and listen to them. Nobody can do these jobs alone. No matter how effective, no matter how good you think you are, no matter how good your write-ups are, you can't do any of these jobs alone. Even if you're the leader of a small organization, you can't do it by yourself. And so you have to build a team, nurture a team, listen to the team, listen to the people you represent, customers, voters, whatever, and you're going to do a better job. Not perfect, but you'll do better if you listen, include, team build, and respect that team every day. Even when you have disagreements with them, you got to respect them.
Terrific. John, thank you very much for doing this today. Thanks for being part of our series.
Thanks a lot, Tom.
Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please make sure to subscribe to this channel for more, or visit westbridgestrategies.com for more information on our organization.